I would recommend this course to everybody. I think it's good for new agents like myself.
I wanted to learn the secret that all agents had, all successful agents had. And I got more than that.
Another day one. Monday, another day one. Start every single day as if it was your first day, and you'll be successful.
Signature!
Good morning and welcome to the Signature Real Estate Group office meeting. I'm thankful for those of you that are here because here's what happened. So on Monday morning, you get your newsletter that tells you what's happening and where it's going to be. And it goes out automatically through Boomtown. And for some reason, Boomtown picked up the newsletter from like 2 weeks before, and we could never get it corrected. So hopefully you all read Agents of Signature Facebook page and you know that's why you're here. So first off, does anybody have any wants and needs? I knew Roya would. You're gonna have to speak up because the speaker is right here.
So we have, yes, please listen. We have a duplex. Come on. Income producing duplex, only priced at $480,000.
Whoa.
Each unit rents out for $1,100. And there's a nice little slab of cement in the back. You can either build something on, or you can put a carport on, and you can have like a little shop on it. So if you'd like to have an investment property, please call us today. And my girl, come on.
I'm an investor.
Well, come with me. Let's talk afterwards.
Let's
I'll
go.
give you all the details. 89122. It's east side technically. It's off the Boulder Highway, like minutes away from Galleria.
Okay, anybody else have a want or a need, a listing they need to sell, a buyer that wants something and they can't find it? Ellie?
I've got this beautiful townhouse up in the northwest, 465, mint condition, upgrades galore. The only issue I'm having is getting showings, I don't know why, we're priced competitively as can be, but it's by appointment only, which is not always ideal, I know, but it's beautiful. 1,566 square feet, 3 bedrooms, beautifully paved back patio, beautiful. 465.
Wow, good job.
Yes,
So
Denise.
I have a listing, highly motivated seller, 1470 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, single story in the northwest 215 and Decatur area. I lowered it 5,000 last week. We're going to lower it 10 today. It's going to be 360.
Oh, okay.
I have a brand new flip on the market, about 10 days now, up in towards Summerlin. It's at Summerlin Parkway and Buffalo area in Ironwood. I don't know if anybody knows Ironwood. Model match just sold late December for $350. Ours is up for $350. Tons of showings, couple cash offers, but a little bit lower than what we wanted. Asking $350 on it. 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 car, well, 400 square foot garage, but it's only one. It's kind of a tandem. But really nice. Everything's brand new. Everything remodeled. It's on there. Great place. Great condo.
John,
I have a coming soon.
speak up because the speaker
I
is
have
here.
a coming soon, 2,400 square foot, 1-story gated, 89130 in the northwest, perfect condition, brand new HVAC, brand new water treatment, highly motivated seller. It's gonna list at 5.25, but they're highly motivated.
Okay,
No
thank
pool,
you.
No pool, but very, very nicely landscaped backyard, definitely pool size.
Anybody else?
I have one coming up.
Okay,
In
Peggy?
the northwest, it's a 6 bedroom, it's a 6 bedroom, 4 bath, a pool, a spa in the northwest. It will be on the market probably in about 3 weeks. We're listing it at 616. Nice. That's beautiful.
And for those of you who are going, who is this? Peggy just joined us with Thursday.
Yes.
So welcome,
Welcome,
Peggy.
Peggy.
Yay. Okay, next up, Gabby from Prosperity
Gabby.
Lending.
Gabby.
Hi.
Don't mess up.
So, I don't know if anybody watched the virtual meeting last week. Oh,
Talk to the book.
sorry. If anybody watched the virtual meeting last week, but Shelley did go over the FHA mortgage insurance rates that are coming out. They do come out on March 20th, so it's going to go from 0.85 to 0.55. That's going to be for your monthly. And then the other great part about it is that it's also going to come off after 11 years. So today, right now, it's for the life of the loan or until you refinance out of FHA to conventional. This will be after 11 years, it'll come off. So VA is also doing the same thing. So VA was at 2.30. Come April 7th, it's going to go down to 2.15 for first-time users. And if they put 5% or more, it goes down to 1.5. So that's really where they're going to take advantage of it because the payment, their loan amount's going to be lower, and then plus the 1.5. So it's going to be about $130 difference from going from 100% financing to 95%, and then with the lower funding fee as well. So do you guys have any questions? Yes.
How about for somebody who has an existing FHA loan, will this go to them as well?
No, they would have to refinance. So if, let's say that they wanted to refinance to get a lower rate, and obviously we know that there's a little bit higher today, but they would have to refinance and then they could get the other FHA.
And it won't come off after, what was it, 12 years?
11 years. So after 11 years, they would still have to do the new FHA monthly, and then it would come off at 11 years.
Okay,
So
but if not, then it's for the life of the loan.
if not, it's for the life of the loan. So even if you have those FHA buyers who can't go conventional and you can, let's say, lower their rate or anything like that, it would be beneficial for you guys to do that. So, and any other questions?
Can you give us the FICO and the maximum for both of them? FHA.
So it's at the top. Are you guys okay if I send it to you on the link on the Signature app? So it gives you the years, it gives you all the percentages, it gives you all of that information on there. So I will send it out to everybody. Any other questions? And then the other thing is I wanted to see if you guys had any suggestions or any topics that you guys want us to cover. I know we come up here all the time, and maybe if we didn't go over something that you guys wanted us to discuss or a refresher, if you guys want to let us know, if they can also on the Signature app, just send us a message. Yes.
203K loans, repair loans.
Okay, we'll definitely put
I
something.
have a ton of investment properties coming on that are junk and will need repairs.
Okay, absolutely. We'll definitely discuss that one.
No, okay. Go to the Signature app and ask me, and then, oh, by the way, I will have an REO class coming up, April 3rd in the morning, and then April 5th in the afternoon. So those that are thinking about wondering what REO is all about, you're gonna get to know everything, what it means, what it takes, how to get them, everything but their names, addresses, phone numbers, because that'll cost you extra.
What time of class?
Time.
April 3rd, 3rd is from 9 to noon, and then April 5th is from 1 to 4.
Awesome. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you guys.
Okay, this morning is going to be on assumable loans. Now, most of you think VA is assumable. I've got this investor. He wants to assume this VA loan because the interest rate's only 2.75. However, that's not really exactly the way it works. Now, for those of us who've been around since the 80s when VA loans and FHA loans were both assumable without qualifying, you could just go buy them right and left, say, hey, I'll give you $3,000 because you're underwater, and I'll take over your loan, and it would be done. Well, I've noticed on the MLS and our agents' listings that I have to sign that people are putting in the agent-to-agent remarks, My VA owner is willing to let his loan be assumed. Well, the key phrase is assumable with qualifying. And things have changed since the 80s. And I found that out this week when one of our agents had an investor who wanted to assume her seller's VA loan and had a very aggressive attorney from another company who was the agent for the buyer who kept saying, I'm an attorney, get this done. I'm an attorney, I know this can be done. But the bank would never give them the paperwork to fill out to qualify to assume this loan. Because when you assume a VA loan, you have to assume it under the same terms that the VA owner took the loan out. So that means VA, you must be owner occupied. So you can assume the loan with qualifying, but not if you're an investor. It has to be owner occupied. So all of you people who are putting in your agent to agent remarks, bring your investors, come assume my seller's VA loan. Yeah, no, that's not gonna work.
They have to be a veteran also, right?
I'm sorry,
They don't have to be a veteran?
they can't be an
We'll cover that in
investor.
class.
We're coming. So, we're fortunate enough today to have Jill Dale Sandberry from Ticor Title, one of our new strategic, easy for me to say, strategic partners, and our marketing rep, Ashley, is here. And they have handouts, and so Jill's gonna do the class, and I will tell you honestly, this is what happened. Jill called me maybe a year ago
That's a while ago.
and said, I have this new class I've written on assumptions. Would you like me to come teach it at your office? I said, oh, yes, of course. Because most agents nowadays don't know what that means. And so we did a lunch and learn. And I was very disappointed in the turnout since I knew most of the agents weren't familiar with assumptions in the market we've just come through. So, but we had the class, it was excellent. And then about maybe 2-3 months later, I had on the same day, not one, not two, but 3 phone calls from agents in this office who said, I just took the most fabulous class, and I don't remember the lady's name that taught it, but it was with a Ticor title, and it was on assumptions. And I said, let me guess, her name was Jill. They're like, yes, how did you know? We need to get her in the office. And I'm like, we have had her. We had her first. So I'm pleased to bring back Jill to talk about assumptions, and they're not exactly what you may think.
Okay, so are we ready? I actually recognize a couple of you. I'm pretty sure some of you have been in my class because we've held a couple classes at Ticor. And so unfortunately, I'm on camera. I move a lot. I hope that you can keep track of me as I'm moving, right? So why is everybody interested? Why is everybody interested in assumptions today? And why weren't we interested in assumptions a year and a half ago? Yeah, really? Right? Is assumptions for everyone? No. And I say it 1,000 times during the class. It's scenario driven, scenario driven, scenario driven, right? It's a scenario driven. And here's the thing. We're going to talk about a couple other things, just not assumptions. We're going to talk subject twos too. Right? Because I'm going to tell you why, it's hot potato out there. When I did my very first class, right? There were, I don't know, we probably had 50 people at Ticor. There were 50 people in the class. And, nobody took it seriously. You know why they didn't take it seriously? Because everybody said, oh, after the election, the interest rate's going to come down. Remember that part? Oh, well, the fourth quarter. The interest rate's going to come down. Remember that part? Remember? Everybody remember that part? Oh, after the first quarter, it's coming down. Did we see that? So now I have people taking my class who didn't pay attention on the first class, right? Because they're like, oh, shit, it's not coming down. Not that we're not going to do any new loans anymore. People get confused, right? They think that this whole assumption thing is going to be for everything. It's not for everything. We're still going to do loans. We're still going to do assumptions. We're still going to do subject twos. We're going to do AITDs. Oh gosh, please no, not here, right? We're still going to do these things in the market. But I don't know, maybe you guys haven't noticed. We have a changing market, not a down market. We got a changing market. And the only reason why we started out with a down market is because we are so used to doing a 2.5%, 3% conventional loan that this is how we look at real estate, right? This is how we do it. Just like this. This is how we do it. Everybody does it like this. Instead of doing it like this, knowing the questions to ask, seeing opportunity that's out there, because the market that we're in today, this is what it looks like. Knowledge is power. And if you don't have the knowledge, right, you don't have the knowledge of what's going on in the market right now, we're just going to leave you behind. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to leave you behind. Not that every opportunity is going to be an assumption, but you never know when it's going to work for you. So I'm going to tell you right now, keep your hands and feet inside the ride, because I only have a half an hour and I'm going to sling to you a lot of information, because it's important that you know. Now, the only reason why I can talk about assumptions or subject twos or AITDs is because, yes, my hair is gray. I am old. 50% of my business when I was an escrow officer in 1990 was assumptions, AITDs, subject twos, contract of sale.
You've mentioned AITDs many times. What is AITD?
An AITD is a wrap, note, and deed of trust, an all-inclusive trust deed. And we're just going to hit on that. We're not going to talk about that, because I do believe that we don't do those here, but it's important that you know, and I'm going to tell you why it's important that you know. So let's start with, somebody tell me what's an assumption? To assume the loan, okay? Does that mean you just take over the payment, or is that paperwork involved in that? Paperwork. So the only way to assume a loan in these days is FHA and VA. Both loans are assumable. Now I'm going to shock the shit right out of you right now, because I'm going to tell you something that happened to me just recently. All right, here's what happened to me recently. I have a conventional loan. I called up my lender. My lender is Citibank. My servicing is Seminar. I called, okay? I said, you know, I think I'm going to be listing my house. I'm going to sell it. Can you see if my loan is assumable? And you know what they said? Yes, I'll send you the assumption package. 10 days later, I got the assumption package. Did it shock the shit out of me that my conventional loan is assumable? Yes, it did. Now, are all conventional loans assumable? No. Do we need to call? Yes. We need to get the information, okay? So, first of all, I need to talk to you about the difference between a formal qualifying assumption. New words. Formal qualifying assumption. And a subject to, because this is what's happening in the market, okay? So, let's say, for instance, you have a listing, okay? I'm the selling agent. Hey, I got a buyer for you. They're going to come in and assume the loan. First question of any listing agent, first question. Are you talking about a formal qualifying assumption. And they say, oh no, buyer's just gonna come in and take over that payment. Is that an assumption? No, right on. I think you were in my class. It's a subject to. Here's the big difference. Formal qualifying assumption, if the buyer defaults, whose credit goes in the title? Buyer. Buyer. Formal qualifying assumption, they've assumed the loan. They now have taken over the debt of the note. They have released the seller of liability. If they default, it is the buyer's credit. Subject to, just come in, take over the payments. If the buyer defaults, whose credit goes in the toilet?
The homeowner who originally had the loan.
The seller. That's a big difference, right? If you're the listing agent, does that sound really good for your seller on the subject to? Do we know the questions that we should be asking when we have a selling agent come and make that presentation to us? I tell you right now, I'm going to tell you, I get so many phone calls, but I get probably 1 or 2 phone calls a month. And here's what they say. Oh my gosh, I sold my property, 6 months ago on a subject to. And now I'm getting notification that the loan's in foreclosure. And they say, oh, Jill, tell me how I can save my credit. And I say in a super, super nice way, you're shit out of luck. I don't know what to tell you. Because here's what's going to happen. The only way to save your credit, is to make payments on a loan, on a property you don't own. So as a listing agent, do you not think that's important that you understand the concept of a subject to in comparison to an assumption? Absolutely. Okay, absolutely. Very important. Now, if you're the listing agent, how are you going to know you got a hot potato? Hot potato means that you have an assumable loan on the underlying, okay, that you're going to take it. How are you going to know? Call the servicer. Okay, so here's my suggestion. If you're going to take a listing, because remember, scenario-driven assumptions aren't for everybody, but you got to understand it to make the presentation. You've got to understand it. So let's say you're going to take a listing, you're going to order a lien summary from Ashley. What's going to happen? She's going to give you a copy of the recorded document, the deed of trust. You're going to be able to tell whether if it's FHA or VA, okay? You're going to be able to tell just by looking at the document. That means it's assumable. If it's FHA or VA, I haven't found one that's not assumable yet. At one point in time, we thought that USDA was not assumable, but we have confirmed with the lender that they are assumable. And I know, when I'm talking up here, sometimes I just have to tell you, some things are not factual. And the reason why they're not factual is because we can't get in touch with FHA, USDA right now to tell us they're assumable. Because reaching out to the FHA or VA is like reaching out to the IRS. Okay? Eat breakfast, eat lunch, you have cocktail hour, have dinner, right? Start it all over again the next day. That's kind of how it is sometimes, so we just don't always know. How we get a lot of our information is by the underwriters and our local lenders are giving this information as they're researching with their corporate headquarters and the such. Okay? So now, we know we have a hot potato. We don't really have 3-minute listings, although I have been hearing that we have a couple maybe offers on one house for selling. I hear that, maybe a little rock and rolling going on out there, but still, they're still not 3-minute listings, right? Have your seller call the lender. I'm thinking about selling my home on an assumption. Is my loan assumable? And how do I get the qualifying package to the buyer? Because remember, FHA, VA, assumable loans, you have to qualify. Qualifying means credit worthy. There's a big difference. Credit worthy, that means number 1, they're financially stable, and number 2, that they actually can make the payment. It's not like the assuming lender is going to source funds on the deal, right? They don't care where the earnest money comes. They don't care where the down payment comes. They don't care if it's, you know, Moneybags' uncle giving them 50,000. They don't really care. They may care that possibly that buyer has skin in the game, but we don't really know because, and the reason why we don't know is because Clark County is truly behind the game here. So there was an article that came out in Money Magazine. I'm going to say it came out about a month ago, right? And it read, will assumption transactions level the playing field? Anybody see that article? It was amazing. The Midwest, they've been doing assumptions for a very, very long time. Because, I mean, here's the logic, folks. How many 2.5%, 3%, 3.5 loans or FHA and VA do we have in Clark County? I knew when that interest rate coming down and coming down and coming down, we kept doing these loans coming down. Eventually, I mean, you know, it's got to go up. I mean, I've been in the industry since 1985. 1985. This is the first time I've ever seen the interest rate go this low. You think it's going to go that low again? It's probably not going to, right? Have you ever seen it that low? No. Denise, have you ever seen it that low? No. No. It's a fluke thing. I think the interest rate totally caught the government with their pants down. What were they thinking? Right? But now we can capitalize on that, right? We can capitalize on that because if you're the selling agent, wouldn't you rather put your buyer in a 2.5 than a 7? If it's possible, again, scenario driven. Okay? And I'm going to give you guys some examples because when we started the class, the reason why we started the class was, of course, as always, to be the most resourceful people in town. That was number one. But number two is when we have a changing market, right? And nobody knows what to do in the changing market, right? Opportunity. Take the blinders off. Because a lot of people are new in real estate. They don't really know that we can do these type of things, right? So let's get back to our assumption package because the buyer has to qualify, right? And what they're going to have to do is just like qualifying for a new loan. Fill out the 1003, you know, their W-2s, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have to send that over to the lender. Now, you don't have to follow me. I'll go back. This camera thing's kind of weird. Okay, so what I have included in your package, right, and this is just so that, you know, shits and giggles so everybody can see, is an assumption package that came from a lender, all right? And I mean, I don't have it, I'm not selling ShellPoint here. It's just an assumption package that I got, and I'm collecting. You know what I mean? I'm collecting all kinds of little prizes on all these assumptions that we're doing. So I thought this is a good example to give to you. And I'm going to tell you what, has anybody heard of ShellPoint? Yeah. Okay, I didn't even hear about ShellPoint, but I'm going to tell you what, they kind of got their shit together. They already got an assumption package. And nothing against any lenders in town, but you know, I lived through 2008. I know what happened in 2008. That's what we're happening now, right? The lenders are getting caught with their pants down, right? They didn't think, what are you talking about assumption? Oh yeah, that's right. We do have assumable loans. I guess we better get it together, right? Because back in 2008, right, when we were doing short sales, lender says, ah, I'm not going to do short sale, forget that. And what was happening? Not only were they doing short sales, but every lender had a short sale department, right? That's what we're happening now. We already have lenders who have it together that have their assumption department going. You call Wells Fargo today, talk to them about assumption, you got to put your name and number in, they're going to call you back, right? Because they don't have it together. Because everybody didn't really think about it. Oh my gosh, we really did these. And I mean, people aren't stupid. If you qualify for a 7 and the scenario was perfect, why wouldn't you qualify for a 2.5? Right? Makes sense to me, doesn't it? Yeah, but we don't know it. I met with a buyer. Who is going to assume a loan on a property, and he actually came into my office and he sat down and he talked to me and he said to me, Jill, are these really legal? Yeah, but that's because we're not educated in them, because we haven't done them. We haven't done them for so long, right? right? I haven't done it for a very, very long time. Okay, so I'm on the clock. Let's talk about release of liability. It's really, really important that you understand this piece, right? A qualifying formal assumption means that the buyer is going to qualify for that loan, credit worthiness, right? And then that buyer is going to step in and release that seller of liability on the note. In the event of default, it will be the buyer. Easy peasy on FHA. Let's talk about VA, because we had a question on a VA loan. Is a VA loan assumable by a non-veteran? Yes. Can that non-veteran release the seller of liability on the note? Yes. Does, oh, break, dance break. It's my phone. Dance break. I like it. Okay, so can a non-veteran release a seller of eligibility? Everybody know what eligibility is on a VA loan? You have two things on a VA loan. Liability, eligibility. Liability is the debt on the note. Eligibility means that you can't go out and get another VA loan unless that loan's paid off. Okay? Now, you have to be a veteran to release the seller of eligibility. Okay? You have to be a veteran. Now, because I'm not going to leave you hanging, and because knowledge is power, I'm going to give you 3 scenarios why it doesn't matter. Let's say, for instance, and now you're going to understand the whole concept of scenario driven. Let's say, for instance, well, you're not 80, but let's just say that my seller is 80. Okay? He's moving in an assisted living. His loan is VA. You think he's going to care about his eligibility? Yeah. So why are we going to worry about it? We're not going to worry about it. But here's what happens. Oh no, we need a VA. We need a veteran. We need a veteran, right? Do we need a veteran? Did we ask the question? Do we have the knowledge to ask the question, right? That's the piece. Do we have the knowledge to ask the question? So let's say, for instance, our seller, husband and wife, both veterans, okay? Both in the military. They need to sell their house because they're going overseas. They don't really care if they get released of liability because when they come back, they're going to use the other. Now, here's what most people don't understand about VA eligibility. VA eligibility in the old days was just a certificate, and it was all the same. Everybody had the same. But it's changed over the years. And what happens is now, is depending on how long you've been in the military and what your rank is, right? They do, boom! You have $800,000 of eligibility. That's how they do that. So if I am selling my loan here and I am a veteran and my underlying loan is $400,000 and I'm actually going to retire and I'm going to head out to Mississippi, I only need $300,000. Do I care about my eligibility and my 400? No, because 4 and 3 is 7 and I have 8. I just gave you 3 scenarios. But if we're not thinking out of the box and we don't understand it, how are we ever going to give opportunity? How are we going to give ever opportunity to open it up? Because here's the thing, in a changing market, wouldn't it be nice if we could get 15% more sales? I mean, I'd go for 15. I'd go for 20, but 15 I'll settle with, right? 15 is good. So I'm not saying that you're going to do 100% assumptions. That's not what I'm saying. But let's start talking about it, because I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of 2.5, there's a lot of 3 out there. So now, we've talked about the release of liability, correct? Everybody understands that piece. Did everybody get coffee this morning? Okay, so here's how it works in my class. I ask a question and then somebody says, yes, Jill.
Yes, Jill.
Okay, thank you. I feel so much better. Okay, now I'm going to bring this over here. Now, last time I attempted this, and now on this one, I actually tripped on it. Like right in the middle of class, and that was pretty entertaining. But you can see. Okay, here we go. I already know what you're going to ask me. Okay, what does that look like on the RPA? Okay, what does it look like on the RPA? Somebody asked me, what does that look like on the RPA, Joe?
What does it look like on the RPA, Joe?
Okay, well, let's talk about got a couple things, just wanna make sure everybody's awake, so here we go. On an assumption, the principal balance of the existing mortgage is always approximate, always. Anybody know their principal balance of their existing loan to the penny? Of course not. Now you get the drift why it's approximate, right? But at the close of escrow, nothing's approximate. Everything is firm at the close of escrow, okay? So here are some scenarios, and this is how it's gonna look on the RPA. And then we're gonna talk about the down payment, because that's important too. So here we go. Let's say, for instance, we have a seller that says, I only can take $300,000. I can't take anything less. $300,000 is my sales price, right? Okay, and the underlying loan is $275,000. Okay, got it. How much money does the buyer have to bring in to close? Okay. So now what's happening is we are ready to close. I get the beneficiary statement. New word, beneficiary statement, not a payoff statement, beneficiary statement. The beneficiary statement comes to the lender and indicates the interest rate, the principal balance, how much is in the impound account, how much longer is on the loan. Because here's the thing, if the buyer assumes a loan that only has 27 years left, the buyer only has 27 years left, right? That's how it works. It doesn't get re-amortized. So we get a beneficiary statement, and the beneficiary statement indicated to me that actually the principal balance of the existing loan is $274,000. Now how much money does the buyer have to bring in to close? Okay, now, if you are not seeing where knowledge is power, you're missing the boat. Because here's the thing. If you don't know what that principal balance is or have an idea of it, and you didn't plan for it, do you see how quickly that buyer had to bring in an additional $1,000? Did you talk to the buyer about that? Anybody? Did we talk to the buyer that they may have to bring in an additional $1,000 because we're not really sure what the principal balance is? Because the last thing we ever want to do is an addendum at closing for more money or less money, right? That's not what we want to do. We're not talking money 4 days before closing because now we found out that the principal balance is different. But you can all see how this can be a little tricky, right? Everybody with me? Okay, now, let's say, for instance, that we have a buyer. Buyer comes in. Buyer says, I only have $25,000. So all I have is $25,000 and closing costs. So, this particular scenario, sales price was firm. If the buyer has $25,000 and that's all they have, and the principal balance is $275,000, what is the sales price? Just shout it out if you know it. Okay, $300,000. Now, if I get to closing and I know the $25,000 is firm, but the principal balance is $274,000, what's the sales price? $299. Do you see how I changed that? See how I changed that? See how it makes a difference? Did the seller think it was $300? Did you explain it to the seller that the down payment is firm? Got to understand that piece because it could be less money to the seller, more money that the buyer has to bring in at closing. I think you guys are now catching the whole drift. Knowledge is power. When you're doing a transaction like this, there's a lot to learn, right? There's a lot to learn because the underlying principal balance always fluctuates based on the payment. So I'm going to give you a scenario, right? Because I think it's important that sometimes we're a little shocked. Let's say, for instance, we didn't check to see what was going on with that underlying loan. Yeah, we just, we went and did our thing. And what we did is we made the down payment approximate because we really didn't understand it. Then we get to close and we find out the seller's delinquent 5 months. So anytime we do an assumption, the loan has to be current. But not a problem because the seller's going to bring the 5 months in at closing. That's fine. But here's what happens to the principal balance. Let's talk about that. I need somebody who can do math on their phone. And don't all jump, because you guys are a little bit of a quiet group. Okay, here we go. So we said that the principal balance of the existing mortgage was $275,000. Let's just say we have 2.5% interest, because a lot of us do have 2.5% interest. And let's just say our mortgage payment is $1,400, okay? So if you could please multiply $275,000 by 2.5% interest, we're going to get the annual interest that's paid.
6875.
Okay, so 6875 is the annual interest. Divide that by 12.
572.91.
Okay, so let's just round that to 575. 575 is the monthly interest paid on this loan. Okay, that's where I'm at. Subtract that from 1,400. Okay, 825. Subtract 825 from 275.
825,000?
$825.
You got 1,000 up there.
Yeah. It was 274.
Slow it down, slow it down.
What is it?
274, 175.
Okay, now, you do that 5 times. They were delinquent 5 months. If the down payment is approximate, this is going to change every time we bring down a payment. Multiply 5 by 825 approximately. How much is
278.75.
how much more money does the buyer have to bring in to close?
41. 25.
Did we think about that? Did we prep the buyer that he's going to have to bring in that additional money? Does he have it? Is he ready? I go through this exercise because it should be a little scary for all of us if we didn't prep our people for what's actually going to happen at closing, right? Hence the reason why knowledge is power on these types of transactions. Really, really important, right? Okay, any questions on this? Okay. How many people can see that an assumption could be beneficial? Okay, I've done several classes. There's always somebody in the class that calls me after the class and says, oh my gosh, Joe, I have a hot potato. I have somebody, they got FHA loan, they have $10,000 equity. I'm stepping in, I'm gonna assume it. They're gonna get the house for $10,000, they're gonna rent it. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting for me. Can it be opportunity? It can be opportunity. For sure it can be opportunity. Is it opportunity for everybody? No, it's not. Scenario driven. So let's talk about what happens with that down. This is where everybody goes a little wild. This is where the crowd goes wild, right? Okay. So here we go. Everybody says, oh gosh, we got so much equity. Not everybody's got equity. You know, we have agents right now that are farming FHA and VA loans that have happened in the past 2-3 years. Not everybody's got a gazillion of equity. Not everybody does. But I'm going to give you a couple scenarios where there is equity involved, right? Because what we're trying to do is, number one, give you knowledge, and number two, to take our blinders off on how it can happen, right? So, you know, there are people that have $100,000 worth of equity in their home. They don't have $100,000 of equity. How are we going to get that money? How are we going to get that equity?
Is it a separate loan?
Separate loan, good. Okay, that was good. That's how we're going to get it, right? If the buyer doesn't have the $100,000 between the sales price and the principal balance of the existing loan, we can do a seller carryback. Everybody know what a seller carryback is? Seller carryback, okay? So what's going to happen? Let's just say our sales price is $500,000. The underlying loan is $400. Gives you a difference of $100,000, okay? what happens is the seller and the buyer create a note between the two of them, 5% interest. Okay? So now what happens is the buyer is going to pay the seller on the 100,000, right, and assume the existing loan. Now, I know you guys are looking at me saying, why would the seller do that? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Okay? Let's just say, for instance, I'm selling my home. And I'm going to carry for 100,000. And I just bought a motorhome. I'm going to travel the next 3 years in my motorhome after I sell my home. And this is going to be perfect monthly gas money. I don't really need the 100 right now because I'm not buying a new home. I just need a little income. But if we don't ask the question, will we know that the seller wants to do this? If we don't ask the question, no, right? So now people say, yeah, but Jill, you know, some of these people got $400,000 worth of equity or $300,000. Okay, I'm going to tell you what, I got an answer for everything, right? Let me give you this scenario. You have a buyer who sold their home in California. They cashed out $800,000. Cashed out $800,000. And they're anticipating to pay cash for property. But if any of you have money in the bank right now, you know money is working for you now, right? How many got money in the bank? How many people are getting 4%, 5%, 5.5% interest on long-term CD in the bank? Let me know. If you're not doing it, that's what you're getting. Trust me. That's what you're getting. Now, if I had cash of $800,000, right? Why don't I get in a property with an assumable loan, put $300,000 down, because I'm getting 2.5% interest, but I take my other $500,000, I put it in the bank, now I'm going to make 4 or 5%. Would that not be the smart thing to do, right? Yes, yes. So just because people paid cash the past year and a half, it's because money wasn't working for you in the bank. Let's get rid of the cash. Cash isn't doing nothing for us these days, but now it is. Can you see how the scenario has changed based on the market? Yes.
Oh, in the first scenario, say the future goes on, the market goes down 20%, and they stop making their payments to foreclose. Would there be a good chance that the person who gave them the carry would get paid?
Okay. So when you do a seller carryback, okay, if that seller brings in the payment, delinquent payment on the first, that seller can now foreclose. Okay, because he has now advanced money on that borrower. And now he can foreclose, he can take the property back, and he can continue to make payments on the first.
But the first is foreclosed.
Doesn't the bank get it before the?
Yeah, but you didn't hear what I said. What I said was the seller can come in, pay the delinquent payments for the borrower on the first. Once he's advanced payments on behalf of that borrower, he now can foreclose on his second. Okay, so he brought the first current, okay, advance money for the borrower. Now he can foreclose on the second, take the property back, continue to make the payments on the first. Okay? Now, there are lenders in town that are doing seconds, right? 9% is what it's going. But still, if you're getting the 2.5% on the first, right? 9% on the second for 100,000 is still better than the 7% overall collectively. Pardon?
Might as well just do a hard money loan at that.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of people don't believe me when I say, hey, folks, we are in it to win it on this, right? We're in it because if you think assumptions are going to go away, they're not going to go away. And I think what we'll find is more lenders figuring out a way to make money on the second, right? I think that they will. We're already seeing that. We're already seeing lenders coming out and saying, hey, I can do those seconds on the assumptions now. Because at 2.5% or 3% or 3.5%, that's pretty good, right? But again, is it for everyone? No. Okay, so now, why do everybody remember what a subject to is, right? Ooh, I'm almost done. Okay, why does everybody know why subject tos are very popular right now?
The buyer has like almost no risk.
Okay, part of the reason why the subject twos are coming kind of out of the woodwork right now is because we have a lot of sellers where the property has been on the market for a long time and they're getting desperate, right? So you have investors that come in and say, hey, I'm going to give you $100,000. I'm going to take over that property, okay? Not that it's a bad thing and not that it's a good thing. Remember, I'm not selling anything up here. I'm not telling you what to do. What I am is I'm giving you facts, okay? It could be a good thing for that seller who needs $100,000 because he's actually leaving the country and moving back home. He doesn't really give a shit about his credit. Got it? But, you know, it could be a good thing when that investor comes in, takes that property subject to, and he resells it to a new buyer who's actually getting new financing. And then he's going to pay that off, and the seller's credit's not hurt. Okay? Now, I am pretty sure that you all know, or all feel, or all see, I have just given you a lot of information. And we haven't even started to get into prorations, title insurance, because I'm going to tell you, if you're the listing agent, I'm going to tell you right now, somebody's going to come up to you. Somebody's going to come up to you and want to do a wrap. It's going to happen. How are you going to recognize it if you don't understand it? They're going to come up to you and say, oh, it's a VA loan. Let's do a contract of sale. How are you going to know it if you don't understand it? So I'm going to hit on that 2 seconds. Do I have 2 more minutes?
Sure.
We're going to hit on it for 2 minutes because remember, education is power here. Okay, here we go. Ready? Okay, I'm just going to give you the scenario. I'm going to scare the living shit out of you, and then we're going to wrap it up. Okay? Let's take an all-inclusive note the deed of trust first. All right, that is what we call a wrap. Why is it popular? I'm going to tell you why it's popular right now. So here's how it works. The sales price is $500,000. The interest rate on the underlying loan of $300,000 is at 2.5%. Okay. The difference is $200,000. The buyer has $50,000. Okay. So what's left of the equity is $150,000. I have this right? Right? Okay. Buyer has $50,000, which gives me a difference of $450,000. Correct? Everybody with me? What happens is the buyer and seller create a loan between the two of them for $450,000 at 5% interest. When the buyer pays the payment on the loan to the seller of $450,000, normally through a loan servicing agent, the loan servicing agent then makes the payment on the $300,000 loan. Why is it popular? Because the seller is going to capitalize on 2.5% of $450,000, and the buyer is going to be just super excited because they're getting a loan for 5 instead of 7. Hot potato right now. Everybody wants to do a wrap. Everybody wants to do a wrap. And I mean, it's a deal. We only wrap conventional loans. We don't wrap FHA or VA. It is something that's happening. But it's very detailed and exceedingly technical and can get everybody in exceedingly huge trouble if when you do this as an interest only, because we always, if we're going to be creative, we might as well really creative. And we do an interest only payment of 5%. And when we make that interest only payment, it doesn't cover the payment here. You got to know that. If you don't know that, it's bad. And then if we have impounds on this loan, oh, I'm drawing all over. You like my artwork? If we have impounds on this one, and we didn't collect impounds on this one, are we even in worse trouble? Yes. Super, super technical, detailed. Insurance remains the same. Buyer gets renter's insurance. I could give you a laundry list of scare the pants off of you on an AITD. Is it happening? It's happening. Do you need to know about it? Yeah, because somebody's going to approach you and want to do that. That's what's going to happen, you know? Here's the only good thing about a RAP loan. The only good thing about a RAP loan is it's statutory foreclosure if the buyer defaults. Now, we don't wrap FHA or VA loans, and the reason why we don't do that is because FHA and VA has come back and said, if you do these crazy things, tight court title, we're not going to let you do any regular loans. I don't want that to happen. But here's the difference between an AITD, which is an all-inclusive trust deed, and a contract of sale. Contract of sale, hot potatoes, right? Because VA has come out and said, if you do a contract of sale, we won't look at that as a transfer of title. And the reason why is because the buyer does not take title to the property. They only have an equitable interest in the property. But the problem with the contract of sale that everybody doesn't understand is if the buyer defaults, it's judicial foreclosure. Anybody know what judicial foreclosure means? A good year and a half. Okay? A year and a half. And if the seller just happens to get an IRS lien on that property, well, the buyer's making the payments, and then the buyer goes to pay that off, that IRS lien stays on the property. Now it's the buyer's problem. Did this make you all nervous?
Nope.
No? Who said no?
I didn't.
You didn't make you nervous? Okay. I would be nervous. And I do these transactions all the time, right? Do these transactions all the time. Did everybody understand what the RAP is? Everybody understand the difference between an all-inclusive known trustee and a contract of sale? Okay, I know I have to wrap, right? I gotta wrap. Okay, any questions? Look the way I wrap that really quick. Yeah.
I was just under the impression that whoever assumes the loan cannot get a second.
Who said that?
I'm just under that.
No, that has not come out on any of the regulations for the assumptions. And just so that you know, if you look at the FHA and VA regulations, it indicates that the lender has to turn the qualifying assumption around in 45 days. That is what it says in the regulation. If you look at the Shell Point assumption package, it tells you that they're going to turn it around in 30 days. But, I mean, we're not talking, this is not 30-day escrow on an assumption. Not a 30-day escrow. Yes.
I called on one and they told me the servicer has 120 days to review whether it's possible to assume it's a FHA loan.
It's an FHA loan. I would call back, because we've actually had people who have called, hey, is my FHA loan assumable? And they've said no, right? And then they call back, ask for a manager, and they say yes. Yes. Yeah, because a lot of the lenders don't have the assumption package set up. You know, is this easy peasy? No, it's not going to be easy peasy. Was it easy peasy when we started? Denise, were short sales easy?
No.
In the beginning? Right? By the time we did short sales in 6 months, 8 months, we had it down, right? And after a year, we had a package from every lender. We knew exactly what they wanted. That's where we're at with assumptions right now. They don't really know what they're doing. I mean, it's all over the place. I wouldn't be surprised. But if you go on and you do get the regulations from FHA and VA underwriters, they do have 45 days to turn that around. Yes.
How long of an escrow do you need?
I would say at least 60 days. And then, and I am not an agent, I'm not a broker by any means, but if you're doing an assumption, you want to have at least 60 days. And personally, I would put some language in there for an extension in the event it's the lender that's taking so long to get it together on the assumptions, right? We've had some that have gone really, really quick. Probably the easiest and the hardest ones are the ones with credit unions, right? Because the credit unions, their own money, they can just do whatever they want to do, right? But at the same time, we're dealing with people that aren't quite educated in assumptions at this point. That's our problem right now. But I will send Ashley the article and she can send it out to you. The article is truly amazing. The article is even saying that assumptions are going so pricey that FHA and VA are actually talking about lowering the standards and the regulations on the assumptions. Because you know what people say all the time, this is what people say, well, wouldn't the lender rather have a 6% loan or a 7% loan than a 2.5%? No, servicing agents, they get paid to service, right? And if they get rid of 100 loans, what? How do you know that 7% interest is gonna go to that servicing agent? They'd rather keep what they have, right? So they're gonna be willing to work with. But I will send you that article. Just remind me to send it. It's a really good article to read. All right, any other questions? I know that was a lot of information. I'm way over. I'm so sorry. Anything else? Did anybody learn anything?
Absolutely. Holy mackerel, my brain is swimming.
All righty. My number and name is on the very last page. This is a cheat sheet. This is just a cheat sheet. I'm subject to an assumption. My name and my email phone number is on the very last page. If you have a hot potato and you need to talk about it, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay? All right. Everybody have a super day.
Thank you, Jill. So, and now as one of our preferred vendors, we're going to be able to get Jill for more classes. This is a paper that Lois gave me. This is the VA Guarantee Loan Assumption Policy Rider. And it says in big, bold capital letters, this loan is not assumable without the approval of the Department of Veterans Affairs or its authorized agent. The one thing I want to say to you is just like there are a lot of agents out there who were not working or in the workplace when assumptions were a big thing back in the 80s and early 90s. There are a lot of loan officers and servicers who were not around then, and when you call and ask about an assumable package, they may have no idea what you're talking about, so try to escalate it up. Real quick, just a couple announcements. One, you can still register for the LVR General Membership Luncheon Friday, March 24th, 10:30 at the M. So please make your reservations now. Bowling tournament, I'll get into that next week. It's going to be April the 7th. We've had a team since this company has been in existence and not a team. We were 8, 9 teams for years. Last year, I think we were down a little bit. People were still kind of COVID. I had one agent call and say, I can't put my hands in a bowling ball that somebody else has put their hands in. So my goal is to have 10 signature agents in their red signature t-shirts at the Sunset Station on Friday, April 7th. $25, all goes to charity. Just get in touch with me. And one last thing, LVR is giving away scholarships. These are not scholarships for college students. These are scholarships for designations. So if you ever wanted to get a designation, but you didn't want to pay for it because they're not inexpensive, there's an application on the LVR website. Just fill it out. The deadline, I believe, is sometime the middle of April. And you want an ABR, you want an SSR, whatever you want, fill it out and they will select it. There are some criteria that need to be met, but it's all on there. Next Tuesday, we will be in Green Valley. So join us in at 9. Oh, wait. Yes, Patty.
We have orientation at 11 o'clock in this very room.
Exactly.
You need it.
And CE tomorrow in this very room. So have a great week and see you next Tuesday in Green Valley.